Good morning, everyone. Well, in a setting of an acute spontaneous posterior vitreous detachment, the incidence of retinal tears is around 6 to 18%. However, whenever vitreous hemorrhage is associated with an acute PVD, the incidence of retinal tears goes up from 30 to 90% according to different studies. Therefore, whenever in a patient with acute PVD, in whom you're suspecting an acute PVD, you see a vitreous hemorrhage, this should serve as a red alert for you to look for associated breaks in the periphery. Well, hemorrhage in a PVD could result from torn vessels that cross the break, avulsion of superficial retinal or peripapillary vessels once the vitreous detaches from the retina, or sometimes there may be bridging vessels on a break, and continuous vitreous traction on these bridging vessels can cause recurrent vitreous hemorrhage. This is a little rare condition. Vitreous hemorrhage after PVD in different studies has been graded as mild, that is vitreous hemorrhage which does not prevent a detailed fundus examination. Vitreous hemorrhage most of the times following a PVD is mild to moderate. What you'll see is a little streak, a boat-shaped streak of hemorrhage in the periphery, and this is actually the limit of the posterior hyaloid separation from the retina. So this is the streak of blood that you'll see. Moderate hemorrhage would obscure around 1 to 2 quadrants, but it would still allow you to identify and treat retinal breaks. And severe vitreous hemorrhage would be too dense even to see the optic disc and to identify breaks. In an eye with a spontaneous PVD and mild to moderate vitreous hemorrhage, as I mentioned before, identification and treatment of most retinal breaks is possible. And whenever you see a break in the periphery, you can barrage it, preferably with a laser indirect ophthalmoscope with scleral depression, 3 to 4 rows of laser spots, around 500 microns in size. And if the break is in the periphery, it's important to go right up to the ora serrata to barrage the break. However, in an eye with dense fundus obscuring vitreous hemorrhage, you would be faced with a dilemma and a management challenge because you don't know what's behind the hemorrhage and how to manage the patient. You should wait or intervene. Those are the clinical dilemmas that you would face in this condition. First of all, it's important to determine, is the hemorrhage due to PVD? In case it's due to PVD, then your suspicion for a retinal break or retinal detachment would go up. Typical symptoms of the PVD, as we all know, are flashes and floaters, but most of the time, it's not always that a patient will complain of these symptoms. However, it's always desirous to ask about these symptoms. There are no symptoms that can actually distinguish a PVD alone from PVD with an associated retinal tear. And if an associated retinal detachment is also present with the vitreous hemorrhage, the patient would tell you of the classic symptom of a curtain or a shadow in his visual field. So in the history, you could ask a patient the patient would tell you that he had good vision in the eye and he had a sudden decrease in vision. Diagnostic clues have to be sought in the general history, in the ocular history of the patient, which would give you clues whether there's any other underlying pathology or not. You could ask the patient for a history of hypertension, diabetes. As the previous speakers have mentioned, there are so many other causes of vitreous hemorrhage which have to be ruled out. So all these would give you some clues. Patient of diabetes would have you take all these histories, history of leukemia, bleeding diathesis, anticoagulant use, and examine the other eye. That is most important. The other eye could give you lots of clues about the etiology. Most often, if it's a bilateral condition like diabetes, you can get clues in the other eye. And even if the patient has had PVD, you could see treated breaks or treated retinal detachment in the other eye, which could give you clues. A word about vitreous hemorrhage, fundus obscuring vitreous hemorrhage. Well, macroscopic hemorrhages have a more risk of retinal detachment and retinal tears as compared to microscopic hemorrhages. And whenever you have a dense hemorrhage, which you feel could be due to a retinal break, you look for a large posterior break. Because a large vessel would have to be torn for so much hemorrhage to happen. So therefore these breaks are relatively large and relatively posterior if you have a dense vitreous hemorrhage. And in case you're just finding small anterior breaks with a dense vitreous hemorrhage, do keep in mind that there could be more undiscovered breaks also. And your index of suspicion for retinal breaks should be very high in high-risk patients like high myopes and pseudophakics. These are the patients who are more prone to getting these breaks. So, severe vitreous hemorrhage is associated more with older patients. The problems with a severe vitreous hemorrhage associated with a retinal break are a higher incidence of PVR, that is proliferative vitreoretinopathy. These hemorrhages tend to be detected, the retinal detachment with these hemorrhages tends to be detected much later, because patients come with decreased vision, and once they develop a retinal detachment, they are not able to tell you when that retinal detachment happens. And such patients, if they develop a retinal detachment with vitreous hemorrhage, have a worse final visual acuity. The incidence of proliferative vitreoretinopathy in patients with dense vitreous hemorrhage associated with PVD and retinal breaks is as high as 50%, so very high incidence of PVR. Therefore, as I mentioned, eyes with mild to moderate hemorrhage, you have to look for the break and laser it. However, if there is dense hemorrhage, this is a management challenge. And there are two schools of thought. One school, the traditional school, proposes a conservative management where you follow up the patient regularly and treat only when a retinal detachment actually occurs, or in case you start seeing the breaks, you laser them. And the other school of thought, now that vitrectomy has advanced so much, would go for a very early vitrectomy right at the time the patient presents to you. So this has been the old traditional approach. It looks a little ridiculous, but a patient with bilateral patching and headrest, this is what patients were advised in the past. And this would allow the subhyaloid hemorrhage to settle down. But the intragel hemorrhage generally does not go like this. So this was a treatment that was followed for quite a few years. We of course don't follow it anymore. Nowadays, we of course ask the patient to lie down with his head elevated. Weekly B scans are mandatory, and in every B scan you look for the starting or the occurrence of a retinal detachment. And in this, you keep waiting for a spontaneous resolution of a vitreous hemorrhage, and as the fundus starts clearing, you might see breaks which you start lasering. In case a retinal detachment occurs, you operate immediately. Most surgeons would now bend towards the 1 month or 6 to 8 weeks mark. People don't wait beyond 1 to 2 months and to operate. In case the vitreous hemorrhage is not resolving, you anyways operate within 1 to 2 months. So a B scan can actually also detect a retinal tear if it is present. There have been various studies where a tear can be detected, but the rate is highly variable. This technique is highly operator dependent. Large tears in the retina can be detected even on B scan. But B scan also has its fallacies. It can also miss small peripheral detachments, can be missed by a B scan. An obvious detachment like this, of course, could be picked up. And if you're following up a patient with vitreous hemorrhage in whom you feel there's a break and who develops a retinal detachment, you have to go in, intervene, and do surgery. A word about the configuration of breaks. Most of the patients with vitreous hemorrhage and retinal breaks would have superior breaks. Most of the breaks would be located in the superior quadrant with maximum supratemporally. So as the hemorrhage starts decreasing, you should scan the superior periphery very, very meticulously. 67% of the patients would present with one retinal breaks. However, there could be more than one break also. About the incidence of RV with a dense vitreous hemorrhage, about 20 to 40% of eyes with vitreous hemorrhage can develop retinal detachment according to various studies. So this is a pretty high incidence, and all these eyes started off with good retinas to start with and then go into retinal detachment and PVRs. Therefore, there has been a school of thought. These various authors have recommended immediate vitrectomy in these cases. As far as surgery goes, this video is not playing. Anyway, this was a surgical, So for just simple vitreous hemorrhage without a retinal detachment, which is non-resolving, you waited for a month, 2 months, it's not resolving, you go ahead and do a vitrectomy and laser the breaks inside. And nowadays 25 gauge vitrectomy is favored for this. Vitreous hemorrhage with retinal detachment, there are certain problems with this. It is difficult to find all the breaks over the vitreous base of periphery, especially in phakic eyes. You need to do a good depression, which might be difficult in phakic eyes. There's a high incidence of PVR, and the reattachment may be difficult once these eyes go into the PVR stage, and aggressive surgical treatment would be needed. That is, you might need to combine your vitrectomy with an inferior buccal if need be, and silicone oil instead of gas. That's what I mean by aggressive treatment. So here you see this was a case of vitreous hemorrhage. The break has been identified, fluid exchange, and silicone oil injection. These cases are now also managed by small gauge vitrectomy. This is an older video with a 20 gauge vitrectomy. So in conclusion, if the ocular history does not hint at any particular disease, that is a vasoproliferative disease, trauma, AMD, then any spontaneous vitreous hemorrhage, you should keep a very high suspicion for an acute PVD. And if hemorrhage is present, your suspicion for a break should be very high. Conservative management with frequent eye examination and ultrasound is acceptable in some cases where you feel the hemorrhage is receding. You can manage the patient conservatively as long as a retinal detachment does not occur. In patients with a history of retinal detachment in the other eye, early vitrectomy should be considered right at the presentation. And if the vitreous hemorrhage fails to clear very quickly, that is, even after waiting for 6 to 8 weeks, your hemorrhage is not cleared, it would be wise to proceed with vitrectomy, because early vitrectomy is also an option because it would help you to verify the diagnosis, treat retinal tears, and prevent retinal detachment and PVR. So your treatment has to be tailored to the presentation of the patient. Thank you so much for a patient hearing.